Hello, my name is Zaki Anastasiou. Welcome to part 2 of the HPE First Technology Digital Podcast, in conversation with Christo, Cilliers, Technical Architect at First Technology National. Welcome to part 2. Christo, First Technology National have a very interesting technology with HPE SA. Can you tell us about this relationship and what it's all about?
Yeah, sure. We've been a gold partner of HPE for a very long time, with some very long-standing relationships with the people there, and we're committed to selling the HP products and solutions because we trust the product implicitly. We know that we can give our end users the best product and the best quality of service, completely unrivaled.
So interesting, Christo, you talk about this partnership. You mentioned that you are, it's a gold partner that you are with HPE. Can you tell us about an overview of how customers, your customers particularly, are managing this new norm from a buying point of view? Because at First Technology National, you must have seen some interesting times from the time that you guys started to this new norm that I'm putting in inverted commas. So what are your customers doing and how are they managing this?
No, you're 100% correct. We've seen a change in the behavior that the companies, they have ongoing projects, even during COVID. They had things that they couldn't necessarily stop. And they realized at that point that you can't spend all that money up front by buying something that you're only going to use a very small percentage of, off the bat. And they rather than start looking at OpEx models and move away from the CapEx side. And that leads us very nicely into the Green Lake discussion, purely because you don't have to purchase 5 years worth of infrastructure upfront if you're going to use 1 or 2 years worth in the first time. Before the pandemic, people will still look at a CapEx OpEx. We had a lot of customers that said, no, give me a price. I want to purchase it outright. I don't want to own the kit, and the kit will sit on my side. But we've seen how the changes, and I believe this is due to the severe cash flow constraints that the companies are feeling. And in addition to that, if you remember correctly, we couldn't get anything into the country shipped because of the fact that all the borders were closed. So supply chain were under immense pressure in order to supply hardware to these people that needed to go ahead and roll along with those projects. If there was a Green Lake solution in place at that point in time, there would have been a buffer where they could have used or later on bursted into the cloud in order to make sure that there was enough resources available for them. And that's the kind of behavior we see our customers. They're starting to ask and they're starting to look at us and say, what happens if we get, COVID-20? Which is a reality going forward. Anything is possible going forward. You have to prepare for the inevitable as well.
I don't even want to think about that, Christo. But it's so interesting you mentioned at the start of this whole thing. I was trying to. I had some colleagues of mine, that wanted to buy something so simple like a webcam, for example, and how the supply chain was impacted. I mean, you couldn't get webcams for like weeks from March, and I think only the supply chain started to improve in May. Just to give you an idea of people using Teams and Zoom and all these kind of things. It's fascinating just listening to you, just talking about the global demand that there's been. But you talk about the demand and the surge of COVID-19, application workloads, data creation, for example, analysis, storage. How on earth can organizations cope with this additional demand, Christo?
Well, the short answer is, to go to cloud. So if you don't have the resources available on site, you don't really have a choice but to look at either a hyperscaler for resources or for a cloud provider, all depending on where the data should sit. We need to be cognizant of things like data and sovereignty, but the cloud is definitely the short answer. The problem with cloud is that it can become very expensive very quickly if you don't understand the billing mechanisms, and if you give people the credit card and a free rein to just spin up resources like they want to. Then you can go into your budget that you had set aside, for something else very, very quickly. So we see customers having to want ways of reporting how they actually use those resources, whether it's on site and whether it is in a hyperscaler or a cloud someplace.
So, Christo, when you talk about the solutions and data, I mean, there's so much unpredictability about data, right? You never know how much you're going to use. I look at the data on my phone, for example. I look at the data that I'm consuming. Can you give us an overview on HPE's solutions that support this unpredictability for the demands for storage? Because it's very important. You don't know when you're going to run out, right?
No, you're 100% correct, Aki. The nice thing is that the HP portfolio is extensive. There's a lot of product to choose from. So from a storage perspective, they offer product like, for instance, the Nimble. And let's take just a minute to talk about the Nimble Array. The Nimble Array uses AI in order to predict when you're going to run out of drive space and let you know way in advance. One of two things needs to happen. You either need to pull some data management into play where you start cleaning up and you get rid of all the old photos that you don't need from 1995 anymore, or you start procurement and you purchase new product. Now, in the high-end side of the HP product portfolio, we have HP Primera. That provides a storage experience that's unmatched in the industry with a series of unique stuff that can happen, innovations and intelligence that's in the hardware and in the software. The portfolio and the products is designed to accelerate the application performance, and it gives you proper management. And this harnesses the agility of all the product and clouds to empower businesses by unlocking the hidden insights within the data in real time.
All right. Well, that makes complete sense. But I'm always astonished by the data demands that we all have, So if you can look at the benefits, Christo, that organizations can gain from implementing HPE storage upgrades, what are those benefits?
Well, things have changed since, the days that we had to buy arrays and we had to throw more hard drives if you wanted to, you wanted more performance. Then the first thing the partner would tell to you is, we need to put more hard drives into the system. Whether you needed the capacity or not, you needed to put more hard drives in there to have more spindles in order to get this going. But with the new technology that we have now with all flash, it's becoming cost effective.
So, Christo, it's interesting you talk about data and how we're consuming it and how much we use, but what are those benefits that organizations can gain from implementing, let's say, HPE storage upgrades? What are those benefits?
If we look at the Nimble device, for instance, which is one of HPE's storage devices, in the good old days, we used to throw more hard drives at performance problems, whether you needed the capacity or not. If you needed a faster array, we needed more disks. New technology like Nimble gives you the opportunity to right-size the storage array for what you need. Do I need performance or do I need capacity? So the mindset has changed around how do we actually size these things and how do we propose to our customer to give him a fit for what's good for his business. It's completely tailor-made to what he needs at that point in time in order to get the best out of it. Throw on top of that the AI that's available in Nimble devices to give you the fact, when you're going to run out of space and all that kind of stuff. It becomes something that is really cost effective and it hits the mark every single time with the customer's needs.
So it's a lot of the value you actually don't see until you buy into those HPE solutions, which is great the way you've described it. And I want to talk as well about the HPE SimpliVity solution, which basically enables businesses to deploy in a rapid way virtual desktops with predictable performance, because you talk about the data predictability, but virtual desktops are important. And it's a very simple all-in-one hyper-converged appliance. So tell us about HPE SimpliVity.
So with COVID, the need for customers to spin up those virtual desktops for their remote users became quite apparent. And that brought a challenge into the fold whereby people were running out of performance and they ran out of resources in order to bring up all those VDI sessions. With SimpliVity, you scale very quickly and you scale very easily because you add resources on the fly into a cluster that adds it very, very quickly and makes the resources available for you to spin up those virtual desktops very, very, very quickly. SimpliVity is best of breed when it comes to VDI solutions. It's specifically built to be very scalable and very, very, very fast in both ways to deploy and really good performance. Because ultimately, it is that person sitting in front of his computer, it's that end user, the experience that he's getting from the system that will make or break it.
How fast is fast, Christo? When you deploy a virtual desktop, how fast is fast?
Well, if you think about how we used to do it, where you purchased the computer and then loaded Windows on it and all the old applications that need to go on it, some techie were pounding away on a keyboard for a day and a half. We're talking minutes. We're talking 2-3 minutes, from a template to when the virtual desktop is available, fully secure, fully available for the client to get on with his job.
This is why I love technology. That speed of that, when you had somebody doing it for a day or two. And I purposely asked you that question because, I remember in my organization when guys had to set up a new PC. It would take, then you got to download this, download that, and this driver didn't work. It was a nightmare. So we're talking about virtual desktops almost like in minutes, right? You mentioned about HPE's GreenLake, cloud consumption on premise. How can this solution add that flexibility and agility to an organization's technology requirements when we've got all this uncertainty around us?
Once you've sized the solution and you know exactly what you're going to need for that start bill of materials, and then you have the software that you monitor this with, it becomes something that becomes predictable to the point where to the day we can say, we're going to need more resources at that specific point in time. So we can allow customers to budget ahead and know at what point in time do they need to start giving us a change order. Now, by a change order, I mean, this is an automated thing. People will use the GreenLake solution, and that encompasses all the hardware. I'm talking the storage, I'm talking the compute, and all of that kind of stuff is monitored by the GreenLake software. And it will then trigger to say, you are busy running into that 10% buffer that we've spec'd from day one. And once you start going into that, and that trend seems to continue, we would have to add more resources to the solution. That's an automated process. Instead of then having to go back and plan and say, guys, we need more hardware, we need to go through the entire procurement system to do this. We just look at what's needed and we give HP, or the customer give HP or us, give us a change order, and then we add the extra capacity. And this is all done seamlessly. There's no downtime involved. The customer doesn't even know this. And he only pays for what he uses, making this a true, pay-as-you-go consumption-based model.
Astonishing to think how far we've come. HPE solutions have got lots of different solutions. I mean, Anton was talking about earlier about workforces that have been deployed all over the place. There are remote work locations. People are working from home. People are working from strange offices where data connectivity might not be so great, but people are still doing and they're able to work. Tell us about those solutions that enable that remote work location, that enable distributed work locations as well, because that's been very important during this COVID-19 pandemic.
That's correct, yes. So if we think about it, the old Wi-Fi router that you used to have at home when you connect your cell phone and a couple of home devices to it sufficed. And if it dropped, it was okay. Nobody really cared. You would reset it and you would carry on with your life. Now, all of a sudden, you have a user that's sitting at home and the data that he transmits between himself or the end destination, the servers, the applications that's being used, the security of that data now becomes a really big problem. You get to a point where the user sits in front of a computer with data that he uses that actually belongs to the company. This is IP that the company needs to make sure is always safe. And this brings the HPE Aruba side of the business into the fold. And again, because GreenLake covers all the products that HPE offers, we find a lot of people saying, how can you help me secure my workplace now being my home office or bedroom or kitchen counter or wherever you decided to work from at that point in time. Because the reality is people will in the future not only be working from home, but they would want to work from everywhere. And that's where HPE and Aruba brings you products like Aruba Central and those kind of things that make sure that the actual data that you use is safe, it's secure, and that you as the user still comply to the policies that the company has put together in order for you to do the job. Okay, those policies are very, very important. If you let people free to surf whatever they want and to do whatever they want, anything can and probably will happen.
Okay, Christo, I mean, you've portrayed many of those different solutions that you guys offer. And at the end of the day, it's me as a customer and First Technology National, HPE, who are providing the technology. I mean, this is a partnership. So what role or what kind of value does First Technology National add to the end user experience for me as a customer, for example?
We as First Tech, we look at what they have to offer and we look at what the customer needs. We invest in time, we invest in training, we invest in that kind of stuff in order to be able to deliver a service from a First Tech perspective to the point where HP signs off on that. So we align the value adds that we have and we align the services that we have. Importantly, we add our own value services that we provide in terms of installation, support, maintenance, SLAs, and all that kind of stuff. And all that, we do that in an attempt to become our customer's trusted advisor. If there's a new project that's going to cut off, they will contact us. We can make sure we give them the correct solution for that specific project. It's about that human touch with our customer and understanding the customer to the point where we build a very solid relationship and our customers become our friends, and that's very, very important. And this is all part of the value add that we as First Tech offer.
You've been listening to Christo Cilliers, who's the technical architect at First Technology National.